When Alec Egret was just a brat who spent most of his time doing useless things like fishing around the capital, a flashy magician named Eldaz approached him and asked if he was interested in magic. At first Alec thought that Eldaz was Diddy's agent, but it turns out that he was really just interested in teaching him magic. Eldaz soon started teaching him how to cast spells by thinking about the friends he would make in the future and how he would need to save their asses from monster attacks. Thanks to his trauma-heavy teaching methods, Alec managed to learn magic quickly. Even then, he was disappointed that it took him a whole day to learn a single spell, and he didn't even listen to Eldaz mumbling that it takes normal people a month to learn that spell. Alec eagerly asked Eldaz to teach him another spell, but he told the overeager boy that one spell was enough for the day. Alec was not satisfied by that, but Eldaz remained firm on his decision, and they decided to waste the rest of their time by fishing. Alec kept pouting like a bitch the entire time. But then Eldaz stoked his ego by telling him that he had great talent for magic. He told Alec that even without his lessons, he would become a great magician in the future, and asked him to leave it to fate. Alec was shocked to hear this, and he asks Eldaz why was he teaching him magic in the first place. Before he could give an answer, a fish got caught in his line and Eldaz panicked because he had never caught a fish before. Alec laughed at him before helping him out, saying that a magician as skilled as him should know how to catch fish. Anyway, their life as a student and teacher continued as time passed, and Eldaz taught Alec a lot about magic. But then one day, Eldaz suddenly announced that he was leaving the capital. Alec was devastated by this news because that meant he would never meet his teacher again. But Eldaz had a final piece of advice for him. He told Alec that if he ever got the chance to become a court magician in the future, he should refuse to take the role. Alec couldn't understand what he meant by that and asked Eldaz why did he even teach him magic in the first place. Eldaz shed his gloomy expression for a moment as he talked about Alec's late mother, who did him a great favor when she was alive, and he was just trying to repay her son by teaching him. That was the last time Alec saw his teacher, and he worked hard to enter the Royal Magic Academy so that he could meet him again. There, Alec finds that Eldaz was once a student of the same academy, and he graduated at the top of his class, becoming a court magician soon after that. However, he was kicked out from that post in a few years, and Alec realizes why Eldaz told him not to become a court magician. Instead of following his advice, Alec decides to become a court magician so that he can the unfair imperial court itself. Long story short, he succeeds in achieving his goal and becomes a court magician, but turns out, he should have listened to his teacher's advice. Alec realizes this only when Crown Prince Regulus fires him from his adventurer party in the middle of a dungeon. He asks the prince the reason for that, and the blonde asshole tells him that he is being fired because he is useless. He talks about how he always risks his life on the front line to beat the monsters. The fire magician Lenny uses her spells to repel monsters, and their tank Ix blocks enemy attacks. On the other hand, Alec stays in the rear all the time, and he can only cast pitiful support magic. Regulus says that they don't need a loser like him in their party, and then further insults Alec, saying that he doesn't even deserve to be called a court magician. Alec tries to explain the reason why he only uses support magic, but Regulus doesn't want to hear his answer. Lenny also agrees with him, calling Alec a coward who doesn't have the guts to go deeper into the dungeon, and he is always holding them back. Ix silently nods in agreement as well, and then Lenny says that they have put up with him all this time because the king ordered him to join their party. However, now that the prince has decided to kick him out, she sees no reason for behaving politely with him. Regulus says that Alec must have gotten the top score at the academy by giving a handy to the professors for extra credit. He then asks him why does he have a dagger on him when commoners are forbidden from carrying weapons. Alec explains that they will need the dagger for the next floor of the dungeon, but Regulus gets furious at him. He takes the dagger away and grabs Alec's collar, telling him that no one on his party disobeys him. The prince then snatches away his court wizard robe, telling him that he doesn't deserve it. Alec is left devastated at this, and he has no choice but to leave the dungeon. However, despite being fired and insulted, he still wants to help Regulus and the party. He puts together some notes that can help Regulus tackle the lower dungeon floors, especially since he lacks magic power. The next day, Alec goes to the palace to meet the king about the same, but the guards stop him, telling him that he has been removed from the post of the court magician. He is just a commoner now, and commoners are not allowed to enter the palace without permission. Alec is shocked to hear this, and just then, Lenny comes there to rub salt on his wounds. She tells him to get lost and then walks back inside the palace, but Alec asks her to listen to him just once. He requests her to take the notes he has compiled to the king, because he was the one who assigned him as the court magician and told him to join the prince's party. Lenny takes the notes from him, only to tear them and stomp on them. She then orders the guards to kick the commoner, and Alec is left hopeless and jobless in the middle of the city. He finally realizes that he should have listened to Elda's and not become a court magician, when suddenly, he hears a familiar voice calling his name. Alec turns around and sees a redhead staring at him, and then she suddenly runs to hug him. He takes a moment to process what is happening, but then finally recognizes the girl as Yorha, an old friend of his from his academy days. They sit down to catch up with each other, and Alec tells Yorha the story of how he was kicked out from the prince's party as well as his position as the court magician. Yorha is furious to hear this, and she curses the kingdom that discriminates between nobles and commoners. Alec somehow manages to calm her down before anyone hears them, and then Yorha says that it is actually a good thing that he got fired. Alec isn't even hurt by her statement after all the bull he has been through in the past 2 days. But then Yorha reminds him that she once promised that she would make him join her party someday. Alec remembers that, and then Yorha reveals that she came to the capital for the same reason. She gets up and stretches her hand towards Alec, asking him to conquer dungeons with her. He is happy to receive the offer, but he has started doubting himself after being fired from his job. However, Yorha doesn't care about any of that. She tells Alec that the only person she wants to join her team is him, and no other magician can take his place. He gets emotional on hearing this and immediately takes up her offer, and Yorha gladly welcomes him to her a rank party lasting period. The next day, Alec leaves the country along with Yorha, and he dreams about Elda's advice of not becoming a court magician. A few days later, the news of Alec leaving the country reaches Regulus and his party, and they couldn't care less about him. Regulus talks about how Alec was hailed as a genius among the academy students, and he had high hopes from him. He thinks that they wasted their time because of him, but Lenny says that they don't need to worry about that now because soon a pure-blooded noble will join their party and they will become much more powerful. Meanwhile, Alec and Yorha reach Fizzle, the city of dungeons. Yorha tells him about how this city is the base of a lot of adventurers since it doesn't discriminate between the nobles and commoners. She is eager to get Alec registered as an adventurer quickly, but once they reach the guild, they are in for a shock. The receptionist tells Alec that he can't be registered with Yorha's party because they go beyond floor 30 of the dungeon, and he needs to be a member of the guild for 2 years before he can be allowed to join them. Yorha throws a tantrum on hearing this and asks the receptionist to make an exception for Alec, but she refuses. Yorha asks if her friend Kraja didn't approach her about this matter, and the receptionist affirms that Kraja came here and threatened them to let Alec join. However, the receptionists deal with nutjobs like her every day, so they didn't even budge. Alec and Yorha return empty-handed from the guild and take a break at a public park. As they eat lunch, Yorha tells Alec that they have reached floor 52 of the dungeon, and they can't wait 2 years for him to join their party. However, she is not one to lose hope and decides that if they can't go to dungeons deeper than floor 30, they will go to the shallower dungeons as warm-up. Alec is on board with that idea, and they immediately go to a low-level dungeon with insect monsters. Yorha uses her reinforcement magic to boost Alec's speed and darts around her, taking down the monsters with ease. However, things get serious when Yorha notices that the number of the bugs is not decreasing and they seem to be getting stronger. Alec agrees with her, pointing out that there must be something wrong in the nest that is forcing the monsters to act like this, but it is still under their control. As they keep fighting against the monsters, Yorha activates her shield and begins charging ahead to find their nest. Alec tells her that she is taking a big risk by doing that, but she tells him that this much is nothing. She says that he seems to have lost his edge, because if was the Alec of the past, monsters of this level would be nothing for him. She asks him to trust her and become his real self once again. Alec realizes that Yorha is speaking the truth, and he just needs to regain his confidence to get them out of this situation. He remembers Elda's lesson about how he will need to save his friends from danger, and using that as motivation, he decides to get on the offensive. Alec quickly takes down some monsters with fireballs and then defeats the rest with his dagger. However, a huge swarm of monsters surrounds them after that, but Yorha is not worried about them any longer. She casts a barrier around them, giving Alec the prep time to cast a powerful wide area spell that instantly disintegrates all the bugs. Once everything seems calmed down, Yorha pats him on the back, telling him that he has still got it. Just then, the ground beneath them starts rattling and a gigantic earthworm comes out of it. It attacks Yorha, almost swallowing her. Alec tells her that he will save her and she just needs to activate her shield. Yorha fully trusts him, and she activates her shield spell as Alec summons a fire serpent and attacks the earthworm with it, turning it to ash. Yorha is completely unharmed by the fire, and as she descends to the ground, she runs towards Alec. She says that he is still the strongest attack mage she knows, and their fight reminded her of their academy days. Back then, they were struggling against a 5-headed dragon that was too tough for their weapons, and its attacks were too relentless. However, Alec obliterated the monster with just one spell after enough prep time. Thanks to that, they were able to clear the 68th floor of the dungeon and created a new academy record. And now, Alec is going to join the same party of friends again.